I thought it was just another weird casting call. Until he said I smelled like his. My agent called it a paid social appearance gig. Translation: I was being hired to play someone's boyfriend. Again, I wasn't new to this. After a few failed pilots, 2 canceled dramas, and a scandal that made my name briefly trend for all the wrong reasons, the offers dried up. Real acting gigs? Ghosts. But pretty faces still had currency in the right circles. And mine, well, mine came with the right amount of tragic charm. Client's high profile, the agency rep said. Wants confidentiality, discretion. 1 weekend. You smile, hold hands, wear the suit, don't say anything stupid. You'll get double your usual rate. I agreed before they even finished the sentence. Rent doesn't care about artistic integrity. The building was one of those modern glass towers that made you feel like your self-worth was inversely proportional to the number of security badges you had to wear. Black marble lobby. Chrome elevators. The kind of place that whispered wealth and roared intimidation. I adjusted the sleeves of my too nice blazer, on loan from wardrobe still tagged, and walked up to the receptionist. She looked like she hadn't blinked since 2017. Name? Noel Grant. I'm here for the, appointment. Her eyes flicked down her screen. Top floor. He's expecting you. Of course he was. The elevator opened directly into a private office that looked more like an art gallery. White walls. Sparse furniture. A massive window behind the desk framed the skyline like a threat. And then there was him. Tall. Dark hair. Neatly slicked back. Bone structure that could cut glass. Black shirt, black suit, black tie. Somehow not funereal, just final. Like a closing argument. He didn't stand to greet me. Just looked up from a file with glacier eyes and said, "Mr. Grant." His voice had the weight of command and the temperature of a well-tuned engine. I gave him my best easy smile. I usually make people buy me dinner before this level of tension. His expression didn't change. "Sit." "Okay then." I slid into the leather chair opposite him, trying not to squirm under that stare. It wasn't hostile, just assessing, like he was looking through me, past the charming mask, past the practiced posture, like he was measuring my usefulness. He set a manila envelope on the desk. 2-week contract. You'll attend 4 events with me, beginning with a formal gala this Friday. You will appear as my date, act accordingly, and respond to questions as briefed. Okay, Mr. Wolfe. Michael, he said, curtly. Michael, I echoed. And by act accordingly, you mean? No physical affection beyond what's appropriate in public. No interviews unless cleared. No unauthorized photos. No romantic entanglements with anyone else for the duration of the contract. And absolutely no developing feelings. Understood? I barked a laugh. I've been emotionally unavailable since 2015. You're safe. Something flickered in his eyes. A twitch. Almost a smile. Almost. Then he pushed a sleek black folder toward me. The payment schedule. The event itinerary. Your wardrobe will be handled. We begin tomorrow. He stood, indicating the meeting was over. I should have stood too. Said something smooth, grabbed the envelope, made a confident exit. Instead, I asked, "So why me? Why not some model or influencer with a clean image and 200K followers?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you're good at pretending things are real." That somehow hurt more than it should have. I pushed the feeling down and stood. "Well, if you ever need me to cry on cue, that costs extra." As I turned to leave, I felt his eyes on my back like weight. I reached the door when he said it. Low. Measured. Almost to himself. "You smell like mine." I froze. Slowly, I turned. "Sorry, what?" He didn't blink. Even if you don't know what that means. There was no humor in his face. No flirtation. Just cold certainty. And in that moment, with his gaze pinning me like a nail to the wall, something deep in my chest shifted. A heat I didn't expect. A pull I didn't want. I left without saying a word. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was acting. The next morning, I was escorted, not invited, into a penthouse suite that probably cost more per night than my annual rent. and I was immediately assaulted by fabrics, pins, and a man in red leather loafers and a floral kimono who gasped like I'd slapped him across the face. "You're late," he said, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at me. "You're also tragically under-moisturized. And this," he gestured vaguely at my body, "is going to take work." "Good morning to you too," I said, toeing off my shoes. "Ezra," he announced, grabbing a measuring tape from around his neck. "Stylist to the wolves, and apparently now, to the strays." I blinked. "Do you always insult your clients this early in the day? I'm paid to make you look convincing. Not comfortable." He clicked his tongue as he circled me, measuring, humming, making notes I couldn't see. "Michael said you were an actor." I thought he was joking. But no, I see it now. The pretty boy jaw, the bruised eyes, the slightly tragic energy. "I'm not tragic." "You're wearing department store cologne," he sniffed. "You're tragedy adjacent." I snorted, and for a moment, Ezra smiled like he actually liked me. He waved toward the racks. "We have options. Classic, edgy, dangerous, sexy but depressed. Let's aim for high-class escort with emotional damage," I said. His eyes lit up. "Oh, sweetheart. That's my specialty. 45 minutes, 2 mimosas, and 1 minor pin to stabbing incident later." I was in front of a mirror, wearing a perfectly tailored midnight tuxedo with satin lapels and a crisp white shirt that made my skin look annoyingly expensive. Ezra adjusted the collar, then stepped back. "Now that," he said, "is how you fake belonging." I looked at myself, at the way the tux fit like it had been born on my body, at the way the illusion of control radiated from the cut of the shoulders, the shine of the shoes. And I almost believed it. The suite door opened with a quiet click, and the temperature of the room dropped. Michael walked in, and just like that, the mirror, the tux, the pretense, everything evaporated. He was in a black-on-black ensemble. No tie, just an open collar, the edge of his throat visible like an invitation no one was allowed to accept. He looked like power with a heartbeat. And when his eyes landed on me, I swear I stopped breathing. His gaze swept from my hair to my shoes. Slow, calculated, unreadable. Then he said, "That'll work." Ezra clapped his hands. A rave review. The gala was held at the Ambrose Hall, a massive, gilded ballroom that looked like Versailles had gotten drunk and decided to reinvent itself in New York. There were crystal chandeliers the size of small planets, live string quartet, champagne flowing like guilt at a family reunion, and eyes. So many eyes. Every time we entered a room, people turned, smiled, whispered. Michael moved like he owned the oxygen. And I moved like I was nailed to his side. He kept one hand on the small of my back. Light, possessive, just enough to say mine without a word. "Smile," he murmured without looking at me. "I am smiling," I whispered back, teeth clenched. He leaned slightly closer. His breath brushed my ear. "Make it look less like you're planning a murder." I laughed. Couldn't help it. And the cameras caught that moment. The shared smile, the touch, the flash of chemistry that wasn't in the script. We worked the room. I was charming, a little mysterious. He was distant, in the way that made people desperate for his attention. Together, we looked like the real thing. And maybe that's what scared me. Because the longer the night stretched, the more I forgot this wasn't real. Every glance he gave me felt heavier. Every time his hand adjusted its grip on my waist, I felt a strange warmth bloom across my skin. At one point someone bumped into me, and I stumbled slightly. Michael's arm shot out, steadying me. His fingers dug into my hip. Too tight, too fast, too instinctual. We locked eyes. Just for a moment. His pupils dilated. Just a little. My breath hitched, and something inside me responded. Not nerves. Not attraction. Something deeper, older. Like recognition. Like part of me knew him. Later, as we stood at the balcony for a breath of fresh air, I asked without turning, "This feel normal to you?" His answer was soft, but sharp. "What part?" "The part where this feels less like pretending and more like..." I shook my head. "Never mind." A beat of silence. Then he said, "You're doing well." That was it. just that. But I felt it settle into my chest like a stone. Heavy. Real. When we returned inside, another round of photographers waited. Michael placed his hand on my back again. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. It was supposed to be a role, just a part. But his gaze on my skin left a burn I wasn't ready for. And somewhere between the flashbulbs and the fake laughs, I started to wonder, what if I'm not pretending anymore? The press luncheon was supposed to be simple. Smile. Sit beside him. Laugh at something mildly witty. Hold his gaze a little too long. Be charming, but not too charming. Real, but not too real. We were seated at a round table covered in white linen, tiny forks, and an overwhelming number of microphones. Reporters leaned in, hungry for tension, for gossip, for blood. Michael, as always, was composed to the point of being clinical. Dark suit, crisp shirt, wristwatch that probably cost more than my car, and that same expressionless calm that made people want to shake him just to feel something. I, on the other hand, had become something of a performer again. Not just posing, but playing. So how did you two meet? One reporter asked with a syrupy smile. I leaned forward, all mischief. He tried to fire me the first time we spoke. Michael didn't look at me. Because you were late. By 3 minutes. Time is valuable, he replied, still facing the reporter. I turned to the room with a grin. See? Romance. Laughter rippled around the table. Michael's lip twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. Another voice chimed in. How long have you been dating? Michael answered flatly. We've known each other 3 months. 4, I corrected. He blinked. 3. You just lost a month of my affection, I said, mock offended. This time, he did smile. It was brief, barely a curve. But I saw it. And worse, I felt it. Something warm bloomed in my chest at that tiny expression. Like I'd won a prize I didn't know I'd wanted. By the time we slid into the back of his car, the tension had shifted. I was still grinning to myself, riding the high of a successful act. The kind of energy I used to feel on stage. Controlled chaos. Electric. Real. Michael sat stiffly beside me, jaw locked, one hand clenched around a glass of water. His other hand rested on his thigh, fingers tapping restlessly. And then, I felt it. Not a thought, not an observation, a feeling. Sharp. Unearned. Wrong. Anxiety, but not mine. It hit low in my stomach. A ripple of unease, tight and persistent, like I'd done something wrong, or something had gone wrong. And my body was sounding the alarm. I turned to him, slowly. His knuckles were white around the glass. Are you okay? He didn't look at me. Fine. I swallowed. The pressure in my chest didn't ease. No, seriously, I feel weird. Tight, like something's off. But I think it's you. That made him glance over. His eyes locked on mine like a blade clicking into place. You feel... me? The way he said it, it wasn't casual. It wasn't rhetorical. It was disbelief edged in something like fear. I nodded slowly. I think so? I mean, I'm not psychic, but I know panic when I feel it, and that wasn't mine. He turned away sharply, body going rigid. You're not supposed to feel anything. I blinked. Wow. Thanks? He didn't respond. The car moved in silence for a long moment. Only the hum of the road, and the sound of ice clinking in his glass. Finally, I leaned back and exhaled. I'm an actor, I said to the ceiling. I've faked breakups, orgasms, grief. I once cried on cue because a dog in a coffee commercial died. But this... I turned my head toward him. I'm not faking this. His jaw flexed. Then stop. That stung. I looked away, clenching my fists in my lap. Right, because that's how emotions work. You just press a button. Control-Alt-Delete. I didn't mean... He cut himself off. And that's when I knew. He was panicking. He just didn't know what to do with it. I rested my head against the cold window, trying to slow my heart. I don't fall in love. I don't catch feelings. That part of me was packed up and thrown out years ago with my dignity and my last serious relationship. This should have been easy. smile, hold hands, walk away richer and unfazed. But his eyes on mine make my stomach flip. His voice calms and scorches me all at once. And when he touches me, I feel like the ground shifts. This isn't attraction. This is something else. Something I don't have a name for. And I'm starting to think he doesn't either. The car slowed in front of my building. Michael didn't say anything as I stepped out. I didn't look back, because I wasn't sure which of us I'd see in his eyes. The man pretending to love me, or the one terrified he already did. I woke up drenched in sweat. The sheets were twisted around my legs, my t-shirt plastered to my chest, and my skin was burning, not with fever, but with something deeper, something pulsing beneath the surface, coiling low in my stomach like a warning. My heart was racing like I'd just run a marathon. My thighs trembled. Every inch of me felt too tight and too alive, as if I was waiting for something, or someone. I sat up fast, dizzy and half panicked. This wasn't a hangover. I hadn't even had wine at the luncheon. Okay, I muttered to myself, maybe it's the flu. Or food poisoning. Or... A low moan escaped me before I could stop it. Nope. Not flu. I stumbled into the bathroom, stripped, and turned the cold water on full blast. The shock of it made me hiss. But it didn't help. My skin still buzzed. My breath still came short. And the pressure between my legs, God, it wasn't pain exactly, but it felt like heat crawling outward, demanding relief. I grabbed my phone, shivering under the water, and typed with shaking fingers. Noel, 2:57 a.m., dude. Emergency. I'm either dying or in fake omega heat. Which is insane because I'm not a shifter, right? No reply. Of course not. Normal people were asleep. Normal people weren't waking up in full-body need over a man who just told them to stop feeling. I wrapped a towel around my waist and sat on the cold tiles, my chest heaving. What is happening to me? By morning, I felt numb. The heat had receded, leaving me cold, wrung out and hollowed like a used shell. I managed coffee, toast, and about 6 minutes of pretending everything was fine before a knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Which meant, of course, that it was someone I didn't want to see. When I opened the door, Cal was standing there, holding a coffee and smiling like the last 3 years hadn't happened. "Noel," he said brightly, like he hadn't ghosted me after 2 years and a very public breakup. "Wow, still gorgeous, I see." My stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" He held up the coffee. "Thought I'd bring you your favorite. You used to say it made you feel human. You used to say you'd never date a director. Then you slept with one. So..." He winced, just slightly. "That's fair. I didn't invite him in, but he stepped inside anyway." "You're in the news again," he said casually, looking very cozy. "With the CEO of Wolfe Holdings." I crossed my arms. "So, you're stalking me now?" "I'm keeping tabs on an ex," he said, like that was cute. "And come on. You? With him? What's the deal?" "None of your business." His gaze sharpened. "You looked different, not acting. You looked like you felt something." I swallowed hard. "That's not your concern." His tone softened. "Noel, I just don't want you to get hurt again. People like him, they use what's convenient. You've always been too good at making it easy to love you. Until it's not." That hit a little too close. "I'm fine," I lied. He stepped closer, his voice low. "If it gets messy, if he crosses a line, call me." "You're the last person I'd call," I said, barely above a whisper. He left with that same knowing look he'd always had. The kind that made you wonder if he'd planned the whole thing from the start. Later that afternoon, I found myself back in Ezra's studio/clothing armory, sitting in a chair with a cooling pad on my forehead and a bottle of water pressed to my temple. He stared at me over his red glasses. "You look like someone licked you, and then left you to melt in a gutter." "Thanks," I croaked. "Something's off," he said, crouching beside me. "And not just your energy. You're pale, clammy, and twitching every time someone says Michael." "I'm not twitching." "You're absolutely twitching." I exhaled. I had a night. A weird, physical night. His eyebrow rose. Oh? Not like that. It was hot, burning. I couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. It felt like I cut myself off. Ezra tilted his head. Like what? I hesitated. Like heat. The kind you read about, only I'm not an omega? He said for me softly. I blinked. Right. He stood, slowly. His expression shifted from amused to guarded. Noel, he said. You said you're human, right? I nodded. Never bitten, never shifted. No family in the packs? No. I'm clean. Ezra looked away, jaw tense. Well, maybe not anymore. My heart skipped. What does that mean? He met my gaze, suddenly serious. Sometimes a bond doesn't wait for rules. Sometimes it activates on instinct, on need, without the bite, without the ceremony. That's not... I shook my head. That's not supposed to be possible. Neither is what you're feeling. But here we are. I gripped the edge of the chair. So what? I'm bonding to Michael without meaning to. I don't know, Ezra said. But if you are, it's not fake anymore. I came into this thinking it was a job, a role, a favor for a man too rich and cold to date for real. But something's happening to me, inside me, and it's not just emotional. It's physical, instinctual, like a thread has been tied between us, and it's tightening. And the worst part? I don't think I want to break it. The pain hit me like a punch to the chest. One moment I was sipping tea in Ezra's lounge, pretending I wasn't unraveling, and the next, I couldn't breathe. My ribs tightened, my lungs felt too small. A sharp pulse flared beneath my sternum, like someone had lit a fuse in my heart. I doubled over, nearly dropping the cup. Ezra snapped upright beside me. Noel? I shook my head, unable to answer. The room blurred. It wasn't mine. This pain wasn't mine. It was someone else's. Cold, furious, and buried so deep it echoed. Where is he? I gasped. Ezra blinked. Michael. He's hurting, I choked out, already pushing to my feet. I can feel it. I'd never been to his house. The car pulled up to a sprawling estate just outside the city, walled in iron and shadow. The gates opened without a word, like they knew I was coming. The driver tried to ask if I was sure. I wasn't. I just ran. The air outside was thick and green with garden scents, lavender, rain-soaked leaves, the crisp bite of early evening. But under all of it, him. I could smell him before I saw him, and I could feel it still, that storm boiling under his skin. I followed the pull. It led me around the house, past fountains and statues and hedges carved with obsessive precision, until I saw him, alone in the garden. He was sitting on a stone bench beneath a weeping willow, his shoulders hunched forward, one elbow braced on his knee, the other hand gripping the edge of the seat like it was the only thing holding him together. He didn't see me approach. I could hear his breathing. Ragged, controlled, but barely. Michael. He flinched. Just slightly. I stepped closer. What happened? Leave. I can't. His head turned, eyes catching mine. Not cold this time. Just raw. I said leave. I shook my head. You're hurting. His jaw clenched. Not your problem. It is, I said, my voice low. Because I feel it. I felt you. Like a wave hitting me out of nowhere. He stood, pacing a few steps away, then back again. Like a caged animal. My father, he said, spitting the word like it tasted bad. He's threatening to revoke control of Wolfe Holdings, unless I choose a suitable mate. By council standards. He thinks I'm embarrassing the family. Weak. Reckless. He laughed, bitter and hollow. All because I brought you. I stiffened. Wow. Thanks. That's not what I meant. Really? Because it sounded like you're blaming me for making you feel something inconvenient. He turned to me then, sharply. His voice was low. Tight. Why do you feel it, Noel? My pain, my anger. You're not bonded to me. I don't know. I snapped. I don't want to. But it's happening, and I can't stop it. Silence stretched between us. The wind shifted, rustling the branches above. Then, softer. Why do you feel it? I asked. Why do you care if I'm hurting? His mouth opened, then closed. He looked away. I stepped closer. You've been cold, controlling, always 2 steps ahead, but you looked at me like I was something you couldn't name. And now you're falling apart, and I'm here, feeling it, and you're still trying to pretend none of this is real. His voice was barely above a whisper. If you were a shifter, I'd say we were bonded. That stopped me cold. I stared at him. What? He met my gaze. The way the air shifts when you're near, the way your scent changes when you're upset, how I know when you walk into a room even before I see you. It's not supposed to happen. Not with a human, not without a mark. I exhaled shakily. So what? I'm breaking your biology? No, he said. You're breaking my rules. We stood there, breathing in sync, under the weight of things neither of us could name. Then, in the quiet, I said, so what do we do now? He looked at me like he was trying to memorize every detail of my face. And then, we stopped pretending. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. Not for him. Not for this. But, I do. I feel it like a heartbeat that's not mine. Like a fire under my skin. Like a thread pulling me forward. Not to the role, but to the man. And maybe that's scarier than anything else. The second gala of the week was a blur of chandeliers, champagne, and 1,000 pairs of eyes I didn't care about. I don't even remember what I wore. Just that it was tight in all the right places, and Ezra smirked when I walked out like he knew something was going to happen. Michael had been quieter than usual. Tense. Even for him. But when the cameras were on, his hand found its place on my waist like it always did. Firm, steady, a silent claim. I leaned into it. Not because I had to, but because it felt like the safest place in the room. The ride back was too quiet. Dark windows, soft leather seats, city lights flashing like memories. I could feel the heat building before we even got to his building. It started low in my spine, spreading out like an ember waking up. My skin tingled. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. And when Michael glanced over, his eyes landed on me with a sharpness that made it worse. Like his gaze was coaxing something to the surface. Noel, he said, voice low, uncertain. I tried to answer, but I couldn't. My throat was dry. My fingers trembled in my lap. A flush crept up my neck. I shifted in my seat, and the friction of fabric against skin made me exhale too fast. Michael watched me like I was something unraveling in slow motion. His pupils darkened, nostrils flaring the faintest bit. He knew. The car rolled to a stop outside his building. Neither of us moved. Noel, he said again. You're burning. I swallowed hard. It's not the fever kind. He reached out, slowly like I might flinch, and brushed his fingers along my cheek. His touch was cool against my overheated skin. My breath caught. This isn't normal, he murmured. But you don't have to be. I closed my eyes. His hand stayed there, grounding me, anchoring me to the now. Do you want me to leave? He asked quietly. I opened my eyes, and I didn't answer with words. I leaned into his palm, pressing my lips to the base of his wrist. Light, tentative. That was all the answer he needed. Upstairs, everything moved slowly. He guided me through the hallway like I might disappear if he rushed. His hand hovered near mine, not touching until I reached for it. His apartment was sleek and dim, all clean lines and soft lighting. But I didn't take it in. Not really. All I could feel was him. His scent. The pull. The silence between us was loaded. Waiting. He stopped near the window, turning to me. Noel, he said, voice rougher now. If we do this. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Because I stepped forward and kissed him. Not fiercely. Not urgently. But honestly. His lips parted under mine, and the world tilted. My knees went weak, and he caught me without breaking the kiss. Arms circling my waist, holding me like he'd done it 1,000 times before. His mouth moved against mine with growing pressure, but he never rushed. Every touch asked, every breath waited. His hands were gentle as they slid over my back, under the hem of my shirt. I shivered. "You're sure?" he whispered against my neck. "Yes," I said. My voice cracked, but it was the truest word I'd said in weeks. Clothes came off in pauses. Shirts undone one button at a time. Pants unzipped with reverence. When I stood in front of him, bare and trembling, he looked at me like I was sacred. And when he kissed me again, it wasn't hunger. It was promise. He led me to the bed like I might vanish if he wasn't careful. The sheets were cool. His skin was warm. The contrast made my head spin. The moment stretched. Breathless. Quiet. We didn't talk. Didn't need to. The language between our bodies said more than words could. Every sigh, every gasp, every soft exhale against my ear said, "I see you. I choose you. I want this." I clung to him, nails digging into his back when the pressure built to unbearable. He murmured my name like a vow. And when it ended, I didn't cry. But I could've. Because it wasn't just sex. It was recognition. He lay beside me, chest rising and falling in time with mine. One arm stayed around my waist, fingers trailing patterns across my spine. I didn't want to move. Didn't want to break the moment. He turned his head toward me. Our eyes met. I didn't smile. I just said the only thing that mattered. "You're holding me like I'm yours." He didn't answer. He just held me tighter, and I didn't want him to let go. I used to think desire was a game. That intimacy was a costume I wore to make someone else feel something. But, tonight, I didn't perform. I surrendered. And when he looked at me like that, like I was real, I knew he wasn't acting either. He held me like I was his. And for the first time, I didn't want to be anyone else's. Morning light spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, washing the room in soft gold. I lay there longer than I meant to, tangled in cool sheets, the scent of Michael still clinging to my skin. His absence was a quiet ache beside me. I found him in the kitchen, dressed, composed, back to his usual self, like the night hadn't happened. He was pouring coffee like this was a Monday and not the morning after everything changed. When he turned, I was already waiting. "I should go," I said. He nodded once. "I know." Then he reached into the folder on the counter and pulled out a piece of paper, creased down the middle, torn clean through. My contract. Ripped. He handed it to me without a word. I stared at it. Throat tight. "What's this?" "Your release," he said calmly. "The contract is terminated. You're no longer obligated to stay." "So, that's it?" I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "You're firing me?" His jaw tightened. "You were never hired for what this became." I held the torn paper between us like it meant something. Like it could explain the fire from last night, the whispers against my skin, the way he held me after. Like I was his whole world. "So what? Last night was a lapse in judgment?" I asked. "A mistake to correct with paperwork?" He looked at me. Really looked. "You're not a mistake. But I can't think of you as an employee. As a fake. Not anymore." I swallowed hard. "Then what am I to you?" Silence. No answer. And in that silence, something cracked inside me. I folded the ruined contract once, then set it on the counter. "Right," I said. "It was always just a role." He opened his mouth, but I didn't wait. I walked out. Ezra caught me at the elevator, dressed like a fashion editorial from the future, mug of matcha in hand. He took one look at my face and sighed. God, he did it, didn't he? I blinked. Did what? Tore up the contract. How did you? I know that man like I know my skincare routine. Thoroughly and with a lot of exasperation. The elevator dinged. I stepped in. Ezra followed without asking. He didn't do it to end things, he said as the doors closed. He did it because he can't pretend anymore. I scoffed. He sure seemed fine pretending this morning. Ezra tilted his head. Did he look fine? I hesitated. He looked like someone forcing himself to breathe. That landed. He's scared. Ezra said softly. You pulled something out of him he didn't know was still in there. And Michael Wolfe does not do messy. Especially not with his heart. I leaned against the wall, eyes shut. He should have said something. He's never said anything that mattered to anyone, Ezra replied. Until you... I slid into the back of a taxi, Ezra's words echoing, hollow and warm all at once. As the city passed outside the window, I held my phone loosely in my hand, screen black. No messages, no calls, not even a thank you. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know how to feel. Not like an actor, not like a character. Just me. No costume, no script, just a man who let himself believe for one night that someone might choose him for real. And maybe that was the most dangerous role I'd ever played. I told myself I was prepared, that when it ended, I'd walk away untouched. But I didn't walk away. I ran. Because it hurt. Because maybe I wasn't pretending anymore. And maybe he wasn't either. But neither of us knew how to admit it. The gala was bigger than the last two combined. Bigger venue, bigger press presence. And from what I could see through the glass entrance, an ocean of expensive gowns and sharper smiles. I wasn't supposed to be here. No invitation, no tux, no contract. Just me. In a rumpled black shirt, dress shoes I hadn't worn since the audition that killed my career, and a pulse pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. The guard at the door started to speak, but I locked eyes with him and said, "Tell Michael Wolfe that Noel Grant's here, and that I'm not leaving." Something in my voice made him pause, then nod. Minutes passed. People turned, and then he appeared. Across the room, in a sea of velvet and crystal chandeliers, Michael stood in the center of it all, like gravity itself had chosen a shape. His eyes found me, and the noise vanished. It didn't lower, it vanished, like the room inhaled and forgot to exhale. He didn't move, not at first, but I did. I walked forward through the silence, past tables and eyes and whispers I didn't hear, past the version of myself that still thought I was just pretending. I stopped in front of him. Everyone was watching. But this wasn't for them. You paid me to play a part, I said. My voice didn't shake. But I didn't stay because of the contract. I looked up at him, right into those eyes that had always been too cold, too sharp, until they softened for me. I stayed, I said, because I felt it. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because he stepped closer and said, low enough for only me to hear, "You smell like mine." Because you are. Then he pulled me into him. Not like a performance. Not like a photo op. Like he meant it. Like I was the only thing in the room he could feel. His lips met mine, slow and deep and real. And the crowd exploded. Flashes. Gasps. 100 cameras capturing a truth we'd tried too long to hide. But we didn't stop. Because for the first time, there was nothing left to pretend. Later, we slipped out through the side exit, hands still tangled like we were afraid letting go might undo it all. Outside, the air was crisp and honest. Michael exhaled beside me, long and shaky, like he'd been holding that breath since the night I walked out. He looked over. "You really weren't on the guest list." I smirked. "Yeah, I figured. Thought I'd crash the party in your honor." He squeezed my hand. "That was reckless. Romantic," I corrected. "Idiotic," came a voice behind us. We turned to see Ezra, resplendent in a suit that shimmered purple under the streetlights, arms crossed and eyebrow arched. He shook his head. "You realize I had a bet going that you'd both emotionally implode before the finale?" I grinned. "Sorry to ruin your odds." He sighed dramatically. "Now I have to find a new hot mess with cheekbones and unresolved issues." Michael tilted his head. "You could always just look in a mirror." Ezra gasped. "Was that sass from you?" Michael actually smiled. I felt it. All of it. The connection. The weight that wasn't heavy anymore. The bond that didn't need marks or rules. Just choice. Just us. There was no contract now. No stage. No script. Just two people who tried not to fall, and did anyway. He paid me to pretend. But I stayed because every part of me knew something real had begun. And when he held me like that, like I belonged, I finally believed it too. Not because I was his by bond, but because I chose to be.